Hello, and welcome to AFSPA Live, our monthly digital broadcast designed to give AFSPA members and eligible federal employees a place to ask questions and get answers about past AFSPA Talks topics, their benefits, and wellness needs. There are three primary ways you can join our broadcast. Join us live by clicking the link in this video description and following the instructions to allow access to your camera and microphone. Then, a show moderator will be available to assist you further. You can ask your question through the chat box on whichever social media platform you're streaming AFSPA Live, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. If you're not able to join us live, call our toll-free line prior to the broadcast at 888-435-0757 and leave our team a voice message that we may play back and answer live on air. Just tell us who you are and the question you'd like us to answer. I'll see you at the next AFSPA Live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to AFSPA Live. As a quick reminder, this is your opportunity to ask questions that you have, so please share your thoughts in the comment section below. This month, we'll be discussing overseas care. As a reminder, I wanted to let you all know that we've already released 3 episodes of our podcast, AFSPA Talks, covering overseas care in general, with the Foreign Service Benefit Plan, as well as overseas care and telehealth. And as a final reminder, please be sure to remember that AFSPA Live happens on the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Kyle.
Great, Drew. Thank you very much. This has been a really good month. We've had some fantastic, as you mentioned, podcast episodes. We started out with an interview with the Chief Medical Officer at the Department of State, Dr. Larry Paget, and he gave us an overview of exactly how med works and how things work at the health units overseas. And believe it or not, that's already been one of our most popular episodes ever. I think that's a big question people have, particularly new foreign service officers. What does that look like? And there's only so much information we can give them, but now we've got a little bit more that Dr. Paget could share. Paula Jacob, our CEO, and Stefan Nicely, our Senior Director of Compliance, joined us for that second episode to talk specifically about FSBP Overseas Care and some of the support programs we have, as well as our direct billing relationships with overseas hospitals. And I should mention, we had hoped to have some guests with us today. One of our overseas partners with HCA Health and actually their concierge center team that does some fantastic work, and actually in 2021 was our #1 partner worldwide for claims volume. And we ran into a firewall issue, which True, I know we've experienced before working in healthcare. There's a reason we do this from our homes. Usually it's to avoid some of the firewall issues we occasionally run into in our own office, which is, of course, for our members' protection and the protection of their information. And the same thing for our friends at HCA. So we hope to get them back for a future, either AFSPA Live or more likely for a podcast to do a deep dive on what they do. And lastly, like you mentioned, we did a fantastic episode just this week that came out with on overseas telehealth, particularly our V-Health program, both the general medicine and the mental health program. And a lot of people didn't know about the mental health. It just launched in October, but we've seen a good number utilize the service already. Since we don't have guests, I wanted to see, Drew, I know we've had some folks interested and we've had some questions submitted ahead of time. And you very kindly keep that off my screen so I'm not too distracted. But I will ask you if we've got any questions that have come from our members either today or in advance.
Yeah, this is one, I will admit, this one is just one that I know we've heard a lot from members, so I thought that it would be great to bring it up. See it over at the bottom here. So can members purchase medication overseas using an American prescription? And if not, how do they go about this?
Got it. So and you tell me if I'm answering the question that you're asking, and as you understand it, if I have a prescription written by a U.S. licensed physician, can I get that prescription filled overseas?
Precisely, yeah.
Okay. So the answer is yes and no. So if you have, and we went into some detail with this with Dr. Paget and with Paula, if you have a prescription signed by a U.S. licensed physician, and it's for maybe like a maintenance medication, maybe something that you take for blood pressure or cholesterol or blood sugar, something like that, that even birth control, things like that, that you take every day, maybe once a week, once a month. Uh, that can sometimes be sent through mail order. You can get it sent to your DPO, APO, FPO address overseas, or even your POUTS address. That's not possible in every instance. Sometimes we've got temperature controlled drugs and things like that that we can't always guarantee will get there in time before maybe it's spoiled, before even the gel pack packaging that we have that keeps it cool or keeps it from getting too cold, depending on where you're located, before that runs out. So I should mention, if you're doing mail order, it does have to be a prescription signed by a U.S. licensed physician, whether you're having that delivered stateside or overseas. Now, if you're overseas and you have a prescription signed by a U.S. doctor and you're trying to fill it locally, you'll have to check local regulations, but typically countries are pharmacies in countries are looking for prescriptions signed by doctors or other providers who are licensed in their country. So we do have a couple instances where we've got doctors. I'm aware of maybe, I think, one in Korea that I was aware of a couple years ago who had both a Korean license and a U.S. license. But typically, if you're going to a retail pharmacy, the prescription that you'll want to have filled there should be written by a locally licensed physician. But again, not an expert, not a doctor myself. Check with local regulations. There's support obviously at the embassy if you're there, or oftentimes on base if you're based out of there. You can get that guidance. But and I should also mention that our folks who have access to DoD bases overseas may actually be able to have their prescriptions filled at military treatment facility pharmacies. We have seen that from time to time, whether that's written, and that typically, again, has to be written by a U.S. licensed physician. So a long answer, not definitive, but mail order is available overseas is what I'll underline there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I think things aren't as simple as we want simple answers, but sometimes we can't always get them. So here I have another question here coming in. This one did come in beforehand. So I'm a new member. What exactly does FSBP offer? They, they ask for simple terms ahead of time for AFSPA members abroad. So what can they expect from our
Sure.
services?
So what they can expect is that when you're outside the United States, you can expect that all providers are considered in network. So you can go to any provider worldwide. There's no requirement for referral to see a specialist or anything like that. But you can go to any provider worldwide and they are considered in network. What does that mean? That means that you have that claims from those providers will be processed. I should say, but considered, and assuming we approve them and process them, they will be processed at the in-network rate. So that means that if it's inpatient, preventive care, or standard maternity care, we're talking about 100% coverage. And I'll come back to the plan allowance in just a minute because I want to mention that. But if it's outpatient care, it's considered at 90% because we consider everybody to be in network. And those are the in-network rates in the most basic terms. We also accept whatever the provider bills to be the plan allowance. So you'll see in the language in our brochure, 100% of the plan allowance, we pay 90% of the plan allowance, or if you're stateside and going out of network, 70% of the plan allowance. When you are overseas, we accept whatever the provider bills to be the plan allowance. We're not reducing it to the average rate that we would pay in the United States based on negotiations or anything like that, because you don't always have a lot of options when you're overseas, particularly if you're at State Department or under the authority of the chief of mission. You may get medevac to someplace in Singapore, Bangkok, London, somewhere else, where care is very expensive. You may also receive care locally where it's not very expensive, but we will accept whatever the provider bills to be the plan allowance. So we're not typically reducing that. You can also expect that with very, very few exceptions, you do not have to seek predetermination, pre-certification for procedures or appointments that you have when you're overseas. There are two exceptions that come immediately to mind. The first is gender affirming surgery, and the second is ABA therapy. for treatment of autism spectrum disorder. And those are just to make sure that we're doing all that we can as a plan to support you as you're receiving those treatments and that care.
That sounds great. Kyle, I want to let you know too, we have a comment coming in. You kind of answered some of this comment, but I still want to bring it up. So it's from Miss Bia Jordan. So you answered that kind of first part about, are all overseas doctors out of network? I would say the answer would be no. So the second question, for licensed massages, $60 service appointment a week, what proof needs to be submitted? So is the process different from just submitting the claim how we do it domestically? And then I guess her last question is for teledoc, and doctors that are overseas and if not stateside, are they in network price, or can they pick a doctor from teledoc and check if they are in network?
Good questions. Okay, so you're right. I think we've answered the first question. No, overseas doctors are not considered out of network; they're considered in network. Easy, easy, good answer. For licensed massages, yes, everybody covered by the plan has access to up to 50 massages per calendar year. We will reimburse up to $60 per massage. What do you need to submit? The basic information that you need to submit for massage claims doesn't really change whether it's a massage received stateside versus overseas. The main pieces are, we need your name on there to show that you received the service. Also, your ID number is very helpful. We need the name of the provider. We need the provider's address. We need the date on which the massage was received, the services were received. We need a description of the services. So it can say 30-minute massage, 60-minute massage, 90-minute massage, whatever it is. But we need to be clear that it's a massage. Sometimes massages are received at a spa or places that offer other treatments like facials or pedicures, manicures, things that we do not cover. So it needs to be clear what the service was. Also, how much the service was. And then we are asking for some sort of license number. So in the US, we may be asking, the provider can give you their tax ID number, which for many is their social security number. So they may not want to share that, but we'll accept their license number. And when you're overseas, if they are licensed, if the country you're in requires licensure for massage therapists, then yes, we need that license information. And sometimes this is just a matter of you taking a picture of the license that's maybe framed on the wall, and submitting that with the invoice provided by the provider. But all that information should be on there. We need to know who got the service, who provided the service, how much it was, and the date. Those are the main things, plus that license information. And that'll make sure we can process it as soon as it's received. And I will encourage you, send those as you got them. I did have somebody last year who submitted, I'm not kidding, 2 years worth of massage receipts. It took they submitted on 2 pages. We have to separate those out for every single massage that was received. So two pages became 60 different claims, and that takes some time to process. So if you got them, send them. I'll also encourage you to sign up for electronic funds transfer so we can put that money directly back into your bank account, get your money faster. And then the last question about for teledoc overseas. So I want to draw a distinction between telehealth and telemedicine. So when we're talking about telehealth, we are talking about having virtual visits with providers through our designated vendors. So stateside, that is a visit with Teladoc. When you're overseas, that is through the vHealth platform. And that is a Teladoc subsidiary technically, but you have to go through that platform. Those visits with providers through Teladoc or vHealth when you're overseas are covered at 100%. And the providers on those platforms, whether stateside or overseas, those visits with Teladoc, 100%, they're considered in network for us when you go through those platforms. Telemedicine is when we're talking about a virtual visit with a provider outside of those platforms. So I go in person for my annual physical every year. About a week and a half later, I have a virtual visit with my doctor to go over my lab results and talk about any adjustments to medication or anything like that. That is a telemedicine visit. Telemedicine visits we consider in the same way as in-person visits. So if you're stateside, if the provider is in network, we're considering that at 90%. If they're out of network, we're considering it 70% of the plan allowance. When you're overseas, if that provider is overseas, They're located overseas. They're billing you from overseas. They're considered in network because they're an overseas provider. If you're having a telemedicine visit with a provider back in the States, if they participate in the network, then that's great. We'll consider them at 90%. If they don't, we'll consider it at 70%. I hope that answers your question. Um, and if it doesn't, please let us know. And if there are more individual questions, happy to answer those one-on-one as well for you or for anybody else who's tuning in. I hope that provides some clarity.
Absolutely. I hope that helps you out, Bia, as well. Let me just bring it up. And congratulations, Bia. You moved to Germany recently, and I think you said you're 4 months into the plan. So thank you for joining the Foreign Service Benefit Plan. We're very happy to have you and your loyal membership. Um, and I will move on real quick. I believe we're going to have a caller,
Whoa.
hopefully setting up soon. So um, yeah, while we try to deal with some of those technical things in the background, I really hope we can get that caller on. Let me bring up another question we had from before. So let's see, and I believe they were going to ask about billing, so I'm going to avoid some other billing questions. Um, Somebody asked beforehand, so we've I'm not sure how much in depth we've gone into Cleveland Clinic and second opinions,
Mhm.
but someone asked about um, my spouse may have to undergo a procedure while we're stationed abroad. How can we find more specialists to talk to? Do you think Cleveland Clinic might be a place that we could aim for that?
Yeah, so that's a really great thought. We do have a relationship with the Cleveland Clinic, and we actually did an interview with them back in March. I think you can find that in the ASPA Talks um, history back in March. I think March 7th, something like that. We did an interview with them to talk about sort of how that procedure works, and essentially, it's not available for everything. If somebody's saying they have a broken arm or they're going to have their tonsils removed, that may not qualify. But if we're talking about a major procedure, maybe treatment for cancer, if we're talking about spinal surgery or joint replacement or something like that, you may want that second opinion. And there is a free service available to overseas members where they can submit their information, including doctor's notes, lab information, pathology, things like that. There's a whole portal, and they can submit that online. And there's some fantastic information on our website. If folks go to aspa.org/FSBP, they'll see an option for overseas coverage, and there's information there about the virtual second opinion. And it's basically sending a simple email describing the situation to a member of our clinical team. They'll look through it and then provide you the information on how to access the Cleveland Clinic team. And that usually, once they've got all the information, the Cleveland Clinic has everything. They typically turn that around in under 5 days. I think their average is actually right around 3 days, but I think our guarantee there is sort of 5 business days. So it can be pretty quick. But definitely take advantage of that. We don't see as many people using that, and it's a really great way to access some world-class experts to get that second opinion.
That sounds great. That sounds pretty easy too. I really hope that could be helpful to a lot of our members out there overseas. Actually, I see that Bia came back with one more question, and we are very happy to answer it. If anybody else has a question, please join Bia in the comment section below and drop a line for us. You can let us know where you're watching from, or if you have, a more specific question, please, we will welcome all of them. But Bia asks, how do we sign up for the EFT transfer that you mentioned earlier, Kyle? She's wondering how we get reimbursed.
Yep.
And she says that we are awesome. Thank you. And we say thank you to you too,
Thank
Bia.
you. Well, you can go to afspa.org/FSBP/EFT, like a electronic funds transfer. There is a secure form there on our website. And it just will ask you for your basic information, including your bank account information. And you send that through. We do say it takes up to 30 days for us to process it. Usually it's faster, but I will put that out there. And you may see a 1 cent deposit at some point when our treasury team at the plan administrator Aetna just tests out the connection, make sure everything's in place. And then once that's in place, you should receive any future reimbursements directly to your bank account. Oftentimes you'll get them before the EOB shows up in your Aetna Secure Member website. So that's a great way to avoid having to wait for a check to be mailed to you. Great question.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Oh, this is great. We have another question. People are really starting to chime in now. We're We're getting rolling. I see AFSPA Live is coming on. So Christopher asks, he says that him and his family are living in Turkey for the summer. Beautiful country. Can we use our insurance here? We've had some problems in the past getting reimbursed due to the invoices being in Turkish. Now, I think we have some translation services that might be helpful in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christopher, I hope those problems in the past haven't been with us. If they have, don't tell us. I'm kidding. No, we do absolutely. So to answer your first question, yes, you can use your insurance there. You can use it anywhere in the world. And so you absolutely use your insurance there. In most cases, you will have to pay upfront and then submit to us for reimbursement. It sounds like you're used to that. And then we will absolutely take care of the currency conversion and the translation of the claim when you send it in. What I will say, and this goes for any claim that comes in, when you submit it through the member portal, it's the best way. MyAFSPA.org is the best way to submit it. But when you submit it, there's a place for some notes. Let us know it's in Turkish. That can help us expedite it rather than go, we don't always run into Turkish maybe every single day. German, yes, we see. But let us know that. Or if you're somewhere else that's maybe a little more unusual, put that in there. That just helps us understand where we need to send it to get it translated, can expedite that. But that should not be a problem for us. And I'll just mention also, when you submit claims through the portal, there's a place where we ask for diagnosis or reason for visit. We are not looking for you to give us the ICD-10, the official ICD-10 code for medical procedures or anything like that. I need you to tell me I had a sore throat. I had an earache. This was a follow-up appointment after heart surgery. That sort of information really helps us, and will make sure that we can process the claims more quickly without having to come back to you and say, do you have more information? Can you submit documentation? That sort of information is what we're looking for in that box. So in Turkish and sore throat, doctor's visit for sore throat, something like that. Extremely helpful information.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think we have some more comments coming through. I'm not sure if, well,
Go for it.
unfortunately, Kyle, I'm gonna have to throw it to you, and you're gonna see, you're gonna roll with this punch. So Dennis says that he's living in Portugal and is retired. Is Medicare Plan B required for the Foreign Service Benefit Plan to pay claims?
It is not. And we have a great overview on YouTube, in our podcast feed, everything else, about Medicare and the FEHB. So the good news is that to keep your Foreign Service Benefit Plan, or I guess I should say any FEHB program, but for us, Foreign Service Benefit Plan, you do not have to enroll in Medicare Part B. That is optional. If you are living full time and receiving most of your care there in Portugal, it does not make sense for you to enroll in Part B. I will say that specifically to Dennis about his situation, not applicable necessarily across the board, but for you living overseas and getting most of your care overseas, no, you do not. Doesn't make sense to enroll in Part B. You are not required to enroll in Part B. We may ask you once a year, hey, do you have Part B, as we process your claims, but absolutely not, because it wouldn't help you overseas. Part B does not, and Part A, in fact, they do not pay for claims outside the United States, with very, very limited exceptions. And we may run into one of those with a question that I'm seeing come through in the feed.
Excuse me, I was muted. Yeah, I was muted for a second. I was just trying to give you your space. You want to jump to that one, Kyle? Did you peep at the?
Ooh. All right. Yeah,
I
we
was
can do that.
okay because I wasn't really sure if this made sense, but all right. Jim is asking, are the costs associated with cruise ship medical personnel reimbursable?
All right, so I did put up when I promoted this on YouTube, on LinkedIn. I said, "Ask me anything," and we're getting into that
And we're
area.
getting
So
anything,
yeah,
yeah.
and actually, Jim, this is a great question. And Drew, believe it or not, this is not that unusual that we get claims from
Wow,
folks
okay.
for services on cruise ships. I've seen pre-surgical claims from cruise ships for somebody who maybe fell and had to have a joint
Oh,
replaced overseas or something like that. So yeah, the answer is yes. Now I will say, if you happen to have travel insurance, perhaps you purchase travel insurance along with your cruise ticket and things like that, let us know that. Typically the cruise insurance, the travel insurance may say, hey, your medical insurance has to pay first before they'll consider it. But let us know that when you submit it. Let us know what other insurance you have. In most cases, if you have Medicare, Jim, not sure this applies to you, just speaking generally, if you have Medicare, it typically does not cover you when you're outside the United States, even on cruise ships. There's some very limited circumstances that I'm not going to get into here. But yes, send it to us. That is considered care. It is typically considered in network, but we will look at that when it comes to us. But yeah, send it in. Your coverage is worldwide, even when you're in international waters.
Perfect. Well, yeah, you did say ask me anything and you were ready for anything. That's amazing. I was I was very confused about cruise ships. I've never
And
seen
this is
cruise ships.
recorded, so it has to be true, I hope.
Yeah. I was gonna say I haven't fielded many questions. So Jim, thank you so much for asking that. I certainly learned something. Um now I wow, you guys are really getting involved. I love this. So Daniel excuse me, Danielle, it looks like, is asking about a COVID question. So they just purchased a few COVID at-home tests, 3 per family member. So are these reimbursable, and or is there a limit of at-home tests per family? And I'm not sure if they're overseas, but would that change if they happen to be overseas as well?
Doesn't really change. And I'm glad to see from the picture there, the thumbnail, that some of our youngest members are asking questions. It looks like Daniel. I'm assuming that's maybe a family member. Very cute. So let me say yes. There's a couple different ways to purchase these tests. If you are stateside, you can go to a participating network pharmacy, and there's information about this on our website. Look for the COVID-19 information. Go to a network pharmacy. Go to the pharmacy counter, show your FSBP ID card, and you can purchase up to 8 COVID tests, forgive the language, on a rolling 30-day basis. And those will be covered at 100% when purchased with your ID card at the pharmacy counter. But check the list of participating pharmacies. I'll make sure we get the latest update there. And then if you just purchase them off the shelf somewhere, pay for them, etc., or if you're overseas and you purchase them for, let me stop. Stateside, you purchase, you just walk in, you go to Amazon, something like that. Not a network pharmacy, not at the pharmacy counter. Yes, 8 tests limit is across the board. We'll reimburse up to $12 per test. Now, if you buy the boxes, typically they got 2 tests in there. We'll reimburse $24 for the box because it's $12 per test. You can also order tests through the Express Scripts home pharmacy. Go to express-scripts.com. You'll find information about how to order those to be delivered stateside or overseas. And then finally, if you are overseas and you purchase a locally approved test from a retail pharmacy, we will reimburse that at 100%.
Well, that's certainly comprehensive. Kyle, I wanna that was great. I don't know. I don't know how they would have any more questions after that. So we have 1 more minute left, but I do want to get in a voicemail. We didn't get the live call. We got a voicemail calling in. So let me just bring that up. It should be up here in a second, and let's see what we have to say.
Yes, I wanted to leave a message for today's presentation. I was curious for overseas benefits. How does the billing process work? Would the individual have to pay out-of-pocket expenses and then file for reimbursement? Or will your healthcare program be able to coordinate that billing and the deductible only be due for time of treatment? Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, this is a speed test, right, Drew, to see if we
Yeah. We got to run through this.
All right, well, so the answer is yes, both and neither. So it depends a little bit, and we went into more depth on this in our second podcast this month with Paula and with Stefan. So the most basic answer is that most of the time when you're overseas, you will have to pay at the time of service and then file for reimbursement from the plan. There are 2 other options. The first is, and this is rare, that you can talk to the provider, whether it's a hospital, clinic, individual doctor, whoever, and ask if they'll accept assignment. They most likely will say no, but sometimes they accept that. And you can fill out a claim form and submit it to us with the paperwork and say, pay the doctor or pay the hospital. There's a place to assign benefits. This doesn't happen that often, and especially when you're overseas. The third option is that if you are in a place where where we have direct billing relationships, and you can find this on our website, look for afspa.org/FSBP and look for overseas partners. And there's a full list there of all the groups, all the hospitals and individual providers, clinics, et cetera, with whom we have direct billing relationships. And in those instances, you can show your FSBP ID card when you walk in the door, and for services that are covered by our agreement, they will bill us directly. Sometimes this is just those services covered at 100%, so inpatient, maternity, preventive care. Sometimes it's for outpatient treatment as well. And in that instance, to answer this question, they are equipped. We've gone through training with them, and they've got access to information to collect the deductible and to collect the 10% co-insurance at the time of visit, and then they'll just bill us for the rest. So it works a little bit of ways. If you're more interested in that, I would encourage you to go back to the podcast and listen to that, because we go into great detail with that with Paula and also with Stefan. Stefan does a great overview of how the direct billing relationships work.
Well, that's great. I think that's comprehensive enough, and I think we just made it in on time because we did start a little later than usual.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for really showing up and showing out today. All the comments are great. Danielle, Christopher, Jim, Dennis, Chris, Bia, couple great members there. Thank you very much. We appreciate it for getting involved. I do want to remind everybody that AFSPA Live is a monthly event. AFSPA Live happens on the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So we do hope to see you here next month. And Kyle, do you have anything else you want to say before we close out?
No, this is very excited. Please join us again. Tell your friends. Share it on social media. We'd love to see more people. Try to stump us next time. It's easier than it looks. Than I made it look today. I came prepared. But we'll talk to you next month. Thanks, Drew.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for watching our broadcast. Join us again the last Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget to look for AFSPA Cares on all of our social media channels: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.